I do is to look for and to bring forward the black experience and the narrative of that history, again, past and looking into the future. I also work at the V&A. I work at the V&A with the Caribbean and African Heritage Guides, and bringing those tours forward that we run monthly and weekly, and also the special events in regards to black cultural history as well. So one of the things that I'm going to be looking at here is bringing together two things that have happened over this past year, in the fact of we've had many monuments now that have been put together and put up around, especially London, and also it's about bringing again that story forward, and it's all about sort of be seen and looking at and making our own story, and so that our story is not told by others, but that our story is told by us, as the black diaspora is bringing that story forward and making sure that story is told from our perspective. So one of the first things that's happened this past year was that the National Windrush Monument was placed in Waterloo Station on the 22nd of June 2022, which is also Windrush Day. I don't know if anybody's been to the monument. It's a very poignant, I would say, monument, and it's dedicated to the Windrushers, who are among the many who arrived in the Caribbean due to a call that came from Britain to help rebuild a nation after the Second World War, and that amalgamated with the Immigration Act 1971 as well. As we can see, this monument is pride and placed in the concourse of Waterloo Station, so people who are walking by can see this. And it's also about the traveller, it's about the person who is moving to a new place to live. And this is a worldwide story. This is not only the black experience, but this is the experience of many people who come to the UK. So the sculptor who put together this piece is Basil Watson. He is has had a long career as a Jamaican sculptor. He was born in 1958, and one of the things he says is the harmonious expression of one's vision of life, and that's what he tries to bring to all of his work. He's had a long career, now over 45 years, and he's had several major commissions for various governments around the world, and this includes the National Windrush Movement. It was unveiled by the Prince of Wales at the time in celebration with recognition of the Windrush generation and their contributions towards the British culture and society. Now, one of the things that happened when the monument was unveiled, so to speak, was that people were moved to tears. The people from the Caribbean and African community were moved to tears. And one of the questions is why? Why would people be moved to tears in that case? And that's because it pays tribute to their ambitions in coming to the UK, also their courage and the contribution that they made to British society. It was part of that getting dressed in their Sunday best. It's how they wanted to project themselves to the British community at the time. And it's also showing them climbing a mountain of suitcases together, demonstrating the inseparable bond of the Windrush pioneers and their descendants, and the hopes and aspirations of their generation as they arrived to start their new lives within the UK. So Basil himself was actually a renowned Jamaican artist. He was one of a family of sculptors, and his father was a very famous sculptor too. He was honoured to create this monument. He was born in Kingston, Jamaica, being also, like I said, the son of renowned painter Barrington Watson as well. He had a natural progression to study the Jamaican School of Art, and there he went on to become a leading and successful sculptor in Jamaica. Over his 45-year career, as I've said, Basil completed several major commissions for governments and organisations all over the world. And what he wanted to do was to remember the communities that came from the Caribbean, and he wanted to show that. He then moved to America. He actually did live with his family in the UK for a short period of time as a child. So he was part of the community that came from the Caribbean to the UK as well. And he also then moved to Georgia in the US, where again he had a long and flourishing career there. What he said was, "My parents, along with a great many others, took the long and arduous voyage from the Caribbean with very little or nothing other than their aspirations, their courage, and a promise of opportunity for advancement. Despite many challenges, they spread their culture across Britain, influencing many aspects of society." When he was asked in a recent interview, "Why were you, as a Jamaican who resides in Georgia, USA, asked to create a structure for this instalment in the UK?" His reply was, "The world is a global village. We are a migratory species, and we are moving to a time when we are becoming a global culture. It is very much the case that everybody is influencing each other. The monument design talks about culture, different people, and sets of people. Today, we see Ukrainians, different suitcases. We have seen different communities make these journeys over recent history, and it's something that has been happening forever." So next we're going to look at a young sculpture, and this is actually in a park in New York City, or New York, and it's in the Marcus Garvey Park, which is in Harlem. So this is an amazing piece. I actually did have the pleasure of being able to visit it, and it's called "The Distance Within, Witness" by Thomas J. Price. Thomas J. Price himself is a British sculptor, and this was his first solo presentation in the USA. It was presented by the Studio Museum in Harlem. The Studio Museum's history of introducing the public to artists of African diaspora descent and their works. And if you ever visit Harlem and the museum itself, it's an amazing museum to visit, and they have works from the black diaspora from all over the world. They, at the moment, unfortunately, are closed, but a new building is going to be opening next year. So this piece here, like I say, it's in the park. It's just literally there. It is 9 foot tall. Thomas J. Price insists that his pieces are not put on plinths because he wants it to be part of the community. Now this can lead to many different things, because the Studio Museum, and I bore witness to this, every day has to go and clean and scrub this statue because of various birds, etc., that decide to perch on there, children that decide to put their gum on him, all sorts of different things. But he's always there, and they're always there shining and making sure that he's looking good. One of the things that they love to do is they have picnics and also school trips that have picnics around him. So you often see schools coming in and drawing him and telling his story. So the Marcus Garvey Park is central to Harlem, and again, so that makes it central to the black community there. So this is again showing the black British diaspora is also in America as well. As I said, it is 9 foot tall, and it was placed there in 2020 to 2022, and the times that it's been there through all weathers. And what it is a black man. It depicts a black man looking down at his cell phone. So Price asks us to consider how black bodies in everyday life are subject to extraordinary surveillance, always being watched. In the artist's words, I want to interrogate the notions of presence, movement and freedom. Who do these spaces belong to? And what bodies are provided more or less autonomy to move within liberty throughout these spaces? From Price's own neighbourhood of Brixton, where he describes home, he sees both Brixton and Harlem as historically black neighbourhoods with rich social and cultural legacies. The retrospects of Harlem and Brixton remain in dialogue. Thus, for Price, Harlem holds a special significance as a place for the artist to consider a home away from home. And I also have to say, I see it as a home away from home as well. So Thomas J. Price, as I said, he's a young sculptor. He studied at the Chelsea School of College of Art and the Royal College of Art. His work crosses over media, encompassing sculpture, film and photography. He's engaged in issues of power, representation, interpretation, perceptions in society and in art. He confronts preconceived attitudes towards representation and identity. His large-scale figures are inspired by real people, often those who live in his hometown of South London, where the artist was born and raised, and also resides today. He also actually now works out of a studio in Somerset, where the pieces here were made. That gives him more space to be able to create even bigger pieces as well. The installation here is actually called Thoughts Unseen. Oh, and I just wanted to show, that's me. And you can see how tall that figure, the sculpture is. It's just amazing. It dominates the whole area. And as I say, sometimes the area can get very crowded with people from the community just living their lives and going about that piece all around him. And that's what he's trying to say, I think, is also that part of whose space is this? So another piece of his work is actually in Hackney at the same time as the Windrush monument was put up in Waterloo Station. This piece was also put up, and it's called Warm Shores. And it's a pair of large-scale, again, sculptures which draws directly from the local Hackney community. It was placed there in 2022 because Thomas J. Price, he won the Hackney Windrush Art Commission in 2020, and this was his proposal. In 2021, he invited Hackney residents with a personal connection to be digitally photographed with a 3D scanning device. The information was gathered about clothing and also features, and the statues are a composite to inform the final two large-scale bronzes sculptures of a man and a woman. Again, he says here, it is important that my figures are not placed on plinths to disrupt a sense of, to make and disrupt a sense of hierarchy that surrounds many public monuments. That case of they are hierarchy and above. You know, they're above me. All his sculptures are about me. That's what he's trying to say. They exist among the public and daily life, and they are an extension of the people who inhabit these spaces. So after that, we're going to look at some other pieces, and this is from the Africa Fashion Exhibition at the V&A. Again, this is about speaking out and looking forward, and bringing forward the black diaspora, their work, and that their work is about them, and it's also making sure that narrative of their story comes forward. The exhibition has been running now for about 7 months, and it runs till the 16th of April. It has 45 designers from more than 20 countries across the African continent, and highlights other influential contemporary African fashions, creatives including, as we can see here, the names of Aisi, Ayamigusu, and also Kamuru. Excuse me if my pronunciations aren't exactly correct. But as we can see here, this is about bringing fashion, African fashion, forward. Too often we see presentations of Africa as a backward and also in ethnographic form. But this is about bringing that forward and showing that fashion is about representing the story of people from the African continent, and also the new and amazing designers that are coming forward in that sense. So one of the things that we talk about there is that African fashion means the past, the future, and the present at the same time. The joy of life, and as we can see, the joy of colour, is completely different and very particular to this continent. It shares the language of heritage, it's a language of DNA, and it's a language of memories. That's again showing pieces that are showing the past and the present. We have the Kuba mats in the centre there that normally are hung on walls, but as we can see, clothing has been made of it, and also to be able to walk outside of a room, to be put, in that narrative of I'm wearing who I am. I am part of this story. One of the wonderful things about this exhibition, and I don't know if people have noticed, is that all the mannequins were specially made for this exhibition. Usually mannequins are of a Eurocentric design and patterning, but these ones at the V&A were all made specifically for this exhibition, showing facial features, not being caricatured, and also hairstyling as well. So the exhibition highlights the fashion trends of today, and some of which are being displayed in sequence for the first time. It presents African fashions as a self-deforming art form that reveals the richness and diversity of African histories and cultures. The featuring artists have worked with many people, including Beyoncé and the architect David Ajayi. The exhibition took more than 2 years in the making. So here we have Christine Chincheska, and she is the museum's first curator of the African and African diaspora fashion exhibition. What she says is that we wanted to showcase the Pan-African fashion scene that really connects the creators in the show. So whether it's Morocco, South Africa, or Ghana, we want to strategically break down those old colonial boundaries. The simple take by early colonists on African dress, or the lack of it, as they saw it, fueled the dismissal of the African continent as unsophisticated, unqualified to offer fashions for decades. This is breaking those barriers down and showing that fashion is global and showing that narrative. So what we're looking at here is some of the historical parts of what was happening in Africa fashion at the time. And we have these, wonderful array of different cloths. And we must remember that each rich textile has its own history, its own story from its own specific area. One of the things that it does is that it tells a story. It tells a story of life, of nature. It also tells the story of revolution. It also tells the story of uprisings. As we can see here, we have the commemorative cloth from the release of Nelson Mandela from prison in the early 90s. And his words are sewn into these cloths. A better life for all, working together for jobs, peace and freedom. We have the Adiri cloth, which is from Nigeria, which is in the center. And again, each of these squares tell a story. Each pattern tells a story. So what we need to remember there is that narrative needs to come forward. And adire actually means tie and dye, which is, we see that a lot, and it's been brought forward into European clothing a lot. And we have to remember that these pieces were made, have been made for hundreds and hundreds of years with these specific patterns, and each one again telling those specific stories. And also there on the end there we have the wedding outfits of Ashley Shaw Scott Adjaye and David Adjaye, and that was in 2014. And that's the kente cloth. And again, each piece is sewn together separately, each square is a separate square. And again, this brings the rich cultural heritage from across the African continent and bringing that forward. So we're looking here at a very, very talented, new and exciting designer. Thebe Magugu, he was born in 1993. He's a South African fashion designer, and you can see he's a very young face, isn't he? So I had the pleasure of meeting him the other day when he was doing a fashion show at the V&A, and he was loving the fact that his clothes have been brought forward and been shown in the UK as well. He actually works with Adidas, and he also works with Louis Vuitton as well, part of the fashion house there. Like I said, he's South African. He's a young designer from Johannesburg. He's originally from the small mining town of Kimberley, and he moved to Johannesburg to study fashion, photography and fashion media. He won Best Graduate Collection, and like I said, he's interned for several fashion designers, institutions and retailers before turning to having his own fashion label. I think this is really important, that people from the African diaspora have their own labels, that they're not only part of and included within other labels, but they have their own labels so they can tell their own story as well. So the South African fashion brand primarily started in women's wear, but now it's branched into menswear as now. And I managed to capture this lovely lady here who is wearing one of his heritage dresses, and each dress is representative of a different culture within South Africa. So there is the Yuzu dress, the Zulu dress, the Pidi dress, the Swana dress, the Songa dress, the Basoda dress, and the Swati dress. And they are each and every single one of them bringing the story of that individual culture into the forefront as well. So one of the things that he says is so many African countries have past and present realities that have been stifled by their respective colonizers. Let's retell and rewrite our own story. And I think he's doing that, and he's doing that very well. He creates his own clothes that have the power to shift perceptions of South African identity, specifically social expectations on the modern woman. So this is a collection of photographs that was that I took at the V&A several days ago, and this was his fashion show. So as you can see, these are, they're very up to date, very modern, and there isn't that ethno sort of graphic clothing that some people expect and sometimes even want within African fashion. This is all about being up to date, but as I said, each one does have in some form a representation of the diaspora culture within as well. I hope I can get this to work. fashion show that he debuted in Fashion in Motion at the V&A, and this was part of his latest collection. So, as I've said there, he is an extraordinary talent for telling stories that honour people through his clothes. He tells the stories that resonate internationally as well. So here he is again with his latest collection, and this was inspired by a box of family photographs. Each image inspired an outfit and promoted a stream of Magugu's extraordinary talent for telling stories that honour people through his clothes. And we can see here there is his mother, his aunt, himself, and as we can see especially with the purple outfit here, that's a photograph of himself coming forward within the little prints that are in there as well. So he tells the stories that resonate memories, and when he was making these pieces or designing these pieces, his mother was watching him and was saying that how blessed that she was, and these memories tumbled out in a mixture of English and their native tongue as well. So again here we have a group of designers, young designers, and they are all about recycling and waste. And Wokoru is a display that celebrates the sanctuary of sisterhood. It's a collective of young female artists, and they live in Nairobi, Kenya. And what they're doing is they're challenging what can be done with waste materials. They source these pieces from the refuse, and they're sourced from their own surroundings and also landfills as well. And so if you look closely at the dress here in the bottom, it's all packets of plastic wastage. Like I said, it's all about bringing those projects forward, and a lot of these projects, they have funding, and the projects are also a collective, and in this case it's a group of young women bringing these projects forward. And again, it's about us as people of colour putting those stories forward as well, and making sure their stories are told. So here we have an artist called David Gardner, and I put this one in is because I just find this mask absolutely fascinating. It was a mask that was made for the LSP fashion brand, which is the Lagos-based program. And again, it's about that collaborating between people across continents in regard to fashion at this moment in time. He again is a young designer of colour, and he studied a BA in fashion design at Central School, Martin School of Art, and one of the things he does is make these fascinating masks. He is one of the foremost and also special mask makers in the UK at the moment. This again, he looks at his work in the sense of he is informed by ancient and personal mythologies, African mythologies, rituals, and also queer identity as well. Their artistic practices centre around his an obsession with colour, and also here he's using pearls and beads, feathers, and also intricate stitching to make this mask, which again, as you can see there, is being photographed with the Lagos Space Programme clothing line, and they are quietly radical, they call themselves, and they deconstruct social norms and champions a new African future. The mask is in the collection, and it's reminiscent of those who call upon the spirit during the Yoruba masquerades, and it's also a collaboration work there. very, very quick pick of what's happening at the Africa Fashion. And as you can see, there are the most amazing outfits, and also the clothing lines that are there as well. And again, it's all about looking at the future, bringing the Black diaspora fashion story forward and making sure that that story is told. So now we're going to look at the next part of the talk, which is the Black diaspora portraits from LA to UK. The Black American Portrait exhibition at the Los Angeles County Museum of Art was an exhibition that expresses blackness and beautiful, powerful abundance. And it was joyful and a pleasure to see the exhibition, which spanned over 200 years and shows how black and people of colour envisioned themselves reimagining blackness in their own eyes. All the portraits within this exhibition was done by black artists. And it's very important, again, as I said before, about how the Black diaspora shows themselves. So here we have two portraits we really don't have to explain. They are the Obama portraits. These were the first portraits that you saw as you walked in. And I know it's Black History Month, but I think it's about also showing people, you know, a power couple, and showing how, when people are shown as themselves, how important it is to show people in power, of power as well. So the two portraits were painted in 2018, and the Barack Obama was painted by Kehinde Wiley. She is an African-American portrait painter based in New York. And he's known for his highly naturalistic paintings of black people. He was born in Los Angeles, and he is of the Yoruba and also African-American people. He paints people from Harlem as well, and also South Central Los Angeles. But here, of course, we have Barack Obama. The other painting was painted by Amy Sherrod. She was, or is, an American as well, and she was born in Georgia. She was born in 1973. And again, it's showing how the power of the portrait is coming forward. And she also paints most of her paintings or portraits within a grayscale. That's her signature as well. So you can imagine walking in to this exhibition, and these portraits are, I would say, well, each portrait is probably as big as this screen here. So they're very large, and they are amazing to see, and I could see people taking gasps of air when they walked in and saw these two portraits. So as I said before, you know, one of the things that's happened in the past is that people of colour, people of the Black diaspora have been portrayed by others, bringing their own narrative to the black narrative story. And so these are just three examples of that. We have the exoticism of the black woman, the black woman on the side, and also the pleasantries, showing the pleasantries of the happy black person. You know, these people are being, as it's titled there, slaves waiting for sale, and they're all dressed in their best clothes, and even the mother is smiling down at the child, and they're sitting there passively, just waiting. This is a narrative that has been put across because of enslavement, etc., as the norm for the person of colour, for the black person. And this is about changing that narrative and bringing the new narrative forward. And as this says here, enough about you. This is a painting that is by Titus Kelfer, and he's an American contemporary painter whose work configures and generates art history. He actually did go to Yale, And this is actually a painting. Again, it's a large painting if you actually saw it in real life. And it's depicting his reinterpretation of an 18th century painting of the university founder, Lion Yale. In the original painting, Yale is sitting comfortably with other white male figures, while the young black boy is to the right and is also wearing an iron collar, which shows his lack of freedom and his position of servitude. What the painter has done here is turned that on its head and also made it that this is about the young boy as he's looking forward and he's looking out towards the audience. What he's saying there is, I am here. This is actually a very small painting, or very small graphic painting. And it's by Elizabeth Catlett. She is a sculptor and graphic artist, and it's called The Sharecropper. And I just wanted to put this up here to show you can see within her work here, the actual pain and the story of the woman that's in the painting here. She is known, or she is, a sharecropper. And this is all about the intense hard work, also her strength, wisdom and dignity that's within that painting as well. Elizabeth Catlett, she wanted to show the black experience, and what her words are is, I'm not thinking about doing things new and different, I'm thinking of creating art for my people. So I don't think this one needs too much explaining. It's actually a quilt. It's quilt sewing. Again, something that's very important in the African American diaspora. It's by Bisa Butler, and she creates quilted portraits. And this is one of Chadwick Boseman. Again, this is actually life-size, and it's got all the attributes to him, and what she's tried to do here is to reflect Boseman's attributes. And she's purposely made the quilted portrait life-size, and also she's interpreted by putting in the African diaspora behind him with the greens and the flowers, and also the birds as well, to show, he is here and he is now. And even as it's quilted, you can see the poignancy within his eyes as well. So looking to the future, we're looking at 3 portrait painters or 3 portrait artists in three different forms. And they are displaying their work all over the world right now. Again, they are in the V&A, some of them are in the V&A, and they're also in the Tate Gallery as well. They are Douglas Camp, who is British-Nigerian, and who is one of the most leading sculptors working in Britain today. And that is the centre piece, and that is called Europe Supported by Africa and America. And it's inspired by an abolitionist print by William Blake. And it's the depiction of the 3 graces. She's Africanized the characters, the figures, and they are wearing fashionable Nigerian clothing and gelees, the head ties. And it's inspired by a family photograph. And this is denoting that Africa is a forward-thinking country and also is in command of its own future. There is also a piece here by Lynette Boyoke, and she is an acclaimed British Ghanaian figurative painter, and she's known for putting her canvases or figures set against dark spaces, as we can see here on the far right. She does this to resist placement within a specific time or geography. And what she tries to show is that her oil paintings focus on fictional figures that exist outside of specific time and places. And then the last piece here is a piece by Nigerian-American artist Kendra Wiley, who also painted the Obama portrait that we saw before as well. And as I said before, his portraits are best known as putting people of colour in setting and poses that reference old master paintings, as well as his wonderful Obama portraits. And he describes these as majestic and powerful. The sitter here, Melissa Thompson, was walking through Ridley Street in Dalston when she was spotted by Wiley, and he decided to put her and other Dalston people in these paintings, or the new set of paintings and portraits that he did. This is known as the yellow wallpaper, and that is in reference to a William Morris wallpaper that was done in 1892. His new portraits feature women and girls that the artist met, as I said, on the streets of Dalston. So, I want to thank you for coming along to this talk here, and hopefully I've inspired you to go look at Black British art and the Black diaspora art that again is, being shown all around the world now. And again, it is about telling that story, bringing that story forward, looking to the future. And as we can see, all the artists and designers, they're all looking to the future, and this is going to be a wonderful time for the artist moving forward. So thank you very much. For those of you who
Everyone, maybe if you'd like to talk to Kim afterwards and have a drink with us,